I often say that we need to sometimes just sit down and reflect on the results of our rhetoric. We have a lot of people doing a lot of talking, both on a national level and a local level, when it comes to the problems that we say we have and we need to solve, and when it comes to the things that we say we need and we have to survive and all of that. We have a lot of conversation about that. So today I want to talk about one of the most important things when it comes to economic empowerment. And I have to say it 3 times, otherwise I'm not PC. Jobs, jobs, jobs. We've been hearing that for years and years in this town and on a national level. That's what black people need, jobs, jobs, jobs. And you know my take on that. I believe that the first thing we should do when it comes to dealing with our own personal unemployment situation is to hire ourselves. And I did a show on that. Hire yourself. Do something or make something and sell it to somebody. You may be right now involved in some kind of hobby that you do every day. Think about whether or not you could sell that to someone, regardless of what it is. Well, I shouldn't say regardless. Of course, we want it to be legal. We want it to be ethical. We want it to be moral. But just think about some of the things that you're doing for free and just ask yourself, could I make some money doing this? So the first thing is to hire yourself. There's a book I'm going to share with you today that talks about you being your own CEO. You're the CEO of you. The company is you. Before we get too deeply into the entrepreneurial aspects, let's go back to this jobs, jobs, jobs mantra that we've been hearing for years with very few results. Jobs, of course, as we know them, at least in my generation, have been, I guess, held in the light of careers, being a career. When I got out of high school, a lot of the people I graduated with went to work at Ford and GM, Fisher Body, Milling Machine, LeBlanc, and that was it for 30 years. That was it. And those jobs paid well. But have you noticed what has happened to those jobs here in 2013 or even in the last 20 years? I always say that, people will go to work at these companies and give 30 years of their lives to these companies, of course, in some cases being paid pretty well back then. And after 30 years, they retire, they get a gold watch, and they go home and sit down. And you don't see that anymore. Those jobs, as we have known them, are gone to a large degree. Now, there are some auto plants and some manufacturing that's going on, but little compared to what used to be taking place when I graduated from high school. Now, the call is graduate from high school, go to college, go to some vocational trade school, get a certificate, get a degree, and then go out and prepare for the job market. And even with that, we're finding that the jobs are few and far between. But we know that college grads have an unemployment rate of about between 4 and 6%. Of course, it's always higher for black college grads as opposed to high school dropouts and high school grads. So we will continue to recommend to our young people that they pursue higher levels of education. Not to say that that's going to be the panacea, that's going to solve everything. We know they still have to be at the top of their game. And we know about the discrimination, about the applications that have names on them that look black, how they are discarded versus other names. And we've had those experiments and those research projects by people to show that black people have a less of a chance of getting a job, getting an apartment, getting credit, all these kinds of things. We know that. But should we just sit at home and complain about it and starve? No, I don't think so. We have to do what we have to do in order to make it. We've been doing it in this country ever since we got here. We are survivors, and we've been surviving in this country in spite of all of the negativity, all of the horrible treatment, all of the discrimination, and everything. So while we can learn from the past, we cannot live in the past. Let's learn from it. So what do we learn as of today when it comes to jobs and employment? We know that you have a better chance of getting a good job if you have completed your education. And I really want to stress this to young people, because some of the things I'm going to talk about relate directly to young people. So if they're not sitting here watching this show with you, you need to call them in and sit them down and talk to them about the kind of information that I'm going to talk about today. This notion of jobs juxtaposed against the unemployment rate for young people especially, and even more so for young African Americans, is a picture of frustration and, in some cases, futility and despair. We know that our self-esteem, in many cases, is based on the kind of work that we do, the fact that we work at all. We know that the lack of employment, the lack of something to do to earn some money leads to, in many cases, alcoholism, crime, drug abuse, and all those kinds of things. Domestic abuse, all of those things come into play. So I think it's important for us to take a look at not just the symbolism of chanting jobs, 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 but what we can do to really make some progress when it comes to this unemployment rate that we see. Of course, very high among African Americans and young African Americans, black males especially. So I want to talk about that today and share some information with you, share a local project and program with you, initiative I'll call it, with you. I was hoping to have a guest on today, but he couldn't make it. He is Dr. Victor Garcia, who is the lead surgeon at Children's Hospital, and he is also the founder of an initiative called Core Change, in which he's developing sustainable business models in the urban core of about 3 different neighborhoods in this city. And I've been working with him on this. I've mentioned this before. Dr. Victor Garcia, I talked to him yesterday to see if he could be on the show. Of course, he couldn't. And even while I was talking to him on the phone, a 10-year-old child was brought into the hospital with a gunshot wound. And that's what spurred him on to do what he's doing now with Core Change. I'm going to bring him in, so I'm going to let him get into detail about the program. I'll just give you kind of a broad overview. But as a surgeon, you would say, well, what's he involved with employment for? He understands, having seen all of the children, young people, teenagers coming into the hospital for surgery after being shot. That so distressed him and so upset him that he kept asking, well, why is this happening so much? And as the deeper he looked into it, and as he looked into it further, he found that a lot of the problems in our urban cores come from poverty, come from the lack of sustainable businesses in our neighborhoods, sustainable employment, and all of those things. Now, we all know that crime has a direct correlation to poverty. We know that. A lot of people don't want to admit it. Oh, no, it's not about that. It's about responsibility. Well, that comes into play too, but it's also very much connected to poverty. So he looked at the environment and what he saw every day in that hospital, and he decided that he was going to do something about it. And he came up with the core change concept. You'll hear more about it. We will do a show with him, so stay tuned for that.